The former chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission, Tselane, says the onus is on political parties to ensure that they vet their members before nominating them for any position in public office. Statements come after Murunwa Makwalera resigned as the Tshwane executive mayor and councillor, as well as a member of COPE. This followed the city's discovery that Makwarela had submitted a fake rehabilitation certificate. Tselane says there's a strong possibility that many members of political parties do not qualify to be in public office. Let's take this discussion further then. We are now joined via Zoom by Roxane Ferreira, the head of operations at South African chapter of Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, to weigh in on the issue of fraudulent certificates that are being investigated. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so very much for joining us here on SABC News, Roxane.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the invitation.
You're most welcome. All right, so, we've been seeing, some high-ranking, government officials in the spotlights for using fake credentials or certificates. Talk to us about, the work that you do in this area and the impact that this one should have actually on one's career.
The ACFE South Africa is a registered professional body representing and governing the fraud examination profession in South Africa. And as such, we don't do these types of investigations ourselves, but we do have members who are affiliated and associated with us who do these types of investigations. So we provide regular training events to ensure that they stay up to date with what is the latest in the market.
Yeah.
And then we also use every possible platform to make the public out there aware of what is fraud and what they should do when they come across it. So you are talking about the impact on somebody's career. Presenting a fake certificate is fraud, which by definition is the unlawful and intentional making of a misrepresentation, which causes actual or potential prejudice to another. So it means that the entity to whom this misrepresentation has been made is prejudiced because they think that they are appointing a person with a specific qualification, whereas they are not. And this can be absolutely detrimental to both their operations as well as their reputation. Yeah. And then also other job applicants are also prejudiced, people who actually have the qualification.
Exactly.
So what is also interesting to be noted is, according to the National Qualification Framework Act, misrepresenting a qualification on a CV or even on social media platforms such as LinkedIn or Facebook is actually a criminal offense. And if a person is charged and found guilty, they can go to jail for up to 5 years, or they can receive a fine, or both.
Yeah.
So the impact on somebody's career could be absolutely detrimental. If an employer realizes that the person misrepresented the qualification, they should institute disciplinary action, which could lead to dismissal in the end. And even while the disciplinary is ongoing, the person could be suspended without pay. And then, of course, there is also the criminal action that should follow this.
And I mean, Roxane, why is there no desire to do these sort of checks and balances? It seems that, that they're not done. People are just put through into these sort of public offices. And I suppose this speaks to very many areas of employment where people are just put through without the proper checks and balances being done. I want to talk about why these checks and balances are just not done. Is it a case of friends hiring friends, perhaps as an example? But on the back of that, and I'm asking a two-pronged question here, you've said that this is fraud, but it doesn't seem that people have been held accountable. We continuously read, about officials who were found to have defrauded the system and really put in, fake credentials and so forth. But we don't see people going to prison, and you talk about a fine line. We don't see any sort of accountability. Why do you think that is the case, or are we missing it?
Okay, so on your first question, institutions should do a rigorous pre-employment screening, and this should actually form part of their processes, and they should have policies on this, so that without exception there should be a pre-employment screening process, and they should not just accept a qualification on face value. What they can do is to validate the qualifications through SAQA, the South African Qualifications Authority. They have the email address on their website, and there are also companies out there who can do these types of verifications on their behalf. Now, it should be noted that in terms of the National Qualification Framework Act, there is actually an obligation on employers to validate any qualification that is presented to them before employment. On your second question, why are people not being held to account? That is a difficult one to answer. I think a lot of companies do not realize that there are certain obligations on them to report fraud, or actually any dismissal where dishonesty is involved should be reported to the police. So I think a lot of companies just don't realize that they have this obligation to do that. They can, obviously, as you stated, there is always the possibility of people protecting their friends, and therefore it just gets lost in the system and nothing is done about it.
All right, Roxane, a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so very much for this information. Much appreciated.
It is a pleasure.
All right, that is Roxane Ferreira, the head of operations at South African chapter of the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, weighing in on the issue of fraudulent certificates that, of course, we have been seeing here in the country.